What's going on, everybody? This is Shamar, aka Throne Runner, here for another deck building video. Today we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. Usually I only put up one at a time. Today I'm actually going to do both at once because these are the two decks that I'm going to be running for the duration of the, I guess, spring kit tournament, or at least for the first little bit of it. I'm kind of a hipster when it comes to this. I've been a Noise fan since the core set, and I'm really excited that he's been constantly getting better as the months have gone on. So we're going to start with the Noise deck first, and then the second part of the video, which I'll cut and put into a separate video on YouTube just for length's sake, is going to be an ETF deck. And just note, these decks are all current with the Valley, which here in Canada was just released last week. So there's a few exciting cards that have come out in this pack that will benefit both the Noise and the ETF decks. So without further ado, we're gonna jump in. Like I said, we're playing Noise, and I always like to keep my videos new player friendly. So for those of you who might not know or might not be aware, Noise is right here on the screen. Sorry. Whenever you install a virus program, the corp trashes the top card of R&D. It's a 45 card minimum deck, and he has 15 influence to spend. So let's jump in, and my apologies if there's any noise in the background. So the first card, obviously, and one that everyone should consider first, I know that it sounds silly, but I've forgotten to put this in my decks at times, is the Sure Gamble. Obviously you want that easy money. It comes in the core set, so why wouldn't you use it? So moving on to more specific cards now. I like to start with the Deja Vu. Obviously you're playing Noise, so you want to have the ability to recur a lot of your viruses. So add one card from your heap or two virus cards, and you'll see that this is a very strong operation to play, because you're able to bring viruses back and constantly put them out to mill out your opponent's deck. The next card is I've Had Worse, which was released in the Anarch Big Box, which, like I said, I've been waiting a long time for that to come out, so I'm really happy that that did finally happen. I've Had Worse is also an event. It costs 1 credit. You can draw 3 cards, or if you hold it in your hand, whenever I've Had Worse is trashed by taking net or meat damage, draw 3 cards. This is a very important card in this deck because we're not playing Plascretes, and we don't really have any other damage mitigation. However, it's important to note that when you're holding this card in your hand in preparation for a Scorched Earth Death, for example, if you only have 3 cards in hand and one of them happens to be I've Had Worse and your opponent scorches you, you will still die. So you need to make sure that you're able to have enough cards in hand to withstand the Scorch in order for this ability to pop off, or else you die. Because I mean, you can't really, well, based on the name of the card, I've Had Worse, it's kind of like you shake it off, whatever, I've had worse than that. So you need enough cards in your hand to do it. I made that mistake once, so I'm just letting everybody know ahead of time. I'm sure most of you are fine with that, but I figured I'll just throw that in there for everyone. And for the last of the events in this deck, I play 1 Amped Up, which is also a new card from the big box. Amped Up, gain 3 clicks and suffer 1 brain damage, cannot be prevented, and that costs 1 credit. This is your home run card. Obviously having 3 extra clicks is awesome, and giving up 1 brain damage, especially when it's like a YOLO run for the win, or you need to extend your turn a little bit and get a few more mills out to kind of keep the corp on their heels. This is a very good card to have. So oops, I forgot to click on that. So that rounds the deck events out at 10 cards. And so now we can move on to the hardware. The hardware is very simple. Obviously, when you're playing Noise, because he is a virus-based identity, you're going to want to use the Grimoires. I don't like to play 3 Grimoires ever. I find that having 3 of them is kind of overkill, especially if you find it early in the game, then you know you have 2 dead cards in your hand. So I always go with just the 2 of them. Some games you'll find it early, some games you won't, but you'll find that even if you don't find the Grimoire, you'll still be pretty fine with this deck. Moving on to the resources, because that is the only hardware that we're playing. There's 11 resources in this deck. I'll go backwards in terms of alphabetical order, starting with Wildside. Wildside you want 3 copies of. Like I know I said with the Grimoires, it's pretty redundant to have too many of them, and you'll find that you get dead cards in your hand, but Wildside is a very, very essential card in this deck because you do want to be able to draw through your deck to see those viruses as soon as possible. So having 3 of them in your deck just increases the chances of seeing an early game, and it probably comes as no surprise, but with the Wildside you're going to want to have Aesop's Pawn Shop. When your turn begins, you may trash another of your installed cards to gain $3, and that is out of Shaper, so it's going to cost some influence. Again, you're playing 3 of those and 3 Wildsides. And I forgot to say, for those who don't know what Wildside does, when your turn begins, draw 2 cards and lose a credit. The next is Daily Cast, and I'm saving the best for last, which you probably already know. Daily Cast: place 8 credits from the bank on Daily Cast when it's installed. When there are no credits left on Daily Cast, trash it. Take $2 from Daily Cast when your turn begins. Just a little, I guess, advice. When you have Daily Cast out, you're going to want to use the Pawn Shop on it on its last turn, just to collect that extra credit. Unless you have something more important that you want to get rid of to free up memory, then you can pawn, I don't know, a virus like Cash or something else, which we'll see later. But I tend to make sure that I'm getting that extra buck out of Daily Cast from pawning it. Now, the next card that just came out in the Valley, and it's a card that a lot of Noise players have been waiting for, is the Adjusted Chronotype, which doesn't have an image here, unfortunately, but it's a 3-cost resource. The first time you lose a click each turn, gain a click. And so, I did it again. You can obviously see where the synergy comes by having this card in the deck. This is a card that I also only played 2 of. I play tested a lot with having 3 of them, but because of deck space and wanted to stay as close to 45 cards as possible, I dropped the 3rd one, because even if you don't find it, you're still going to do pretty well. So this card coupled with Wildside means that you're able to draw 2 cards every turn and not lose a click. So you'll be outdrawing the Corp 1. The Corp obviously has their free Corp draw as their first mandatory action. You'll be drawing 2 cards and still have 4 clicks to do whatever you want. Coupled with Amped Up later on in the game, that gives you a ton of options. So again, that card just came out, and I'm really excited to have it out. You obviously want to get these 3 puzzle pieces as soon as possible. Moving on to the Icebreakers, it is, as you would probably expect, Corroder being still one of the best fractors in the game, and because you're playing Anarch, it doesn't cost any influence, so you're going to want to play that. 2 copies of Corroder. The stats are 1 credit to break a barrier subroutine, 1 credit to increase its strength. It comes in for 2 credits and has a base strength of 2. Next is Mimic, which is also a fantastic but static sentry killer. Costs $3, has 3 strength, and it can't be increased, so you're obviously gonna need to use Data Suckers to make this card worthwhile. 2 of those, and then finally the Break Anything awesome core set card, Crypsis, which is a virus, so when he comes into play, he is going to mill a card off your opponent's deck, so you're gonna play 2 of those as well. So that puts us to 29 cards. For the last couple cards in the deck, they're all programs, and they're all virus programs. So starting off with, in alphabetical order, we'll go with Cash, which basically changed the game for Noise when this card came out, however many months ago it was, in the spaces between. Place 3 virus counters on Cash when it's installed, and then hosted virus counter, gain 1 credit. So it costs $1 to put it in. It's going to mill a card off of R&D, and then you're going to be able to pull all the counters off of it to get 3 credits back for a net gain of 2. If you have Grimoire out, then obviously that's a net gain of 3. But we'll see later on in the programs how you're able to even gain a bit more off of playing out Caches. And so obviously when you have this card out, you're going to want to pawn it after you take the money off to get an additional $3 from it. So that's an auto 3 right there, because it's cheap, it's going to mill you cards, it's going to get you money. Next, Data Sucker, ever important when you're playing Crypsis. Data Sucker, you just remove virus counters in order to lower the strength of your opponent's ice or the corpse ice. So 3 of those. And again, it costs you 1 and you're going to be milling cards. Next is Imp. Why do I keep typing 3? Imp is a card that allows you to trash your opponent's cards, even if they cannot be trashed. So you can trash events or whatever have you whenever you see stuff off R&D or HQ. 3 of those. And then Parasite, obviously to chew away at ice, coupled with Data Sucker. You want 3 copies of those. And then lastly, the 2 cards that really work together, including Imp, sorry. Yeah, I already said Imp, sorry. So the one card that works very well with Imp is the new card Gravedigger, or newer card that came out with Order and Chaos. Whenever an installed corp card is trashed, place 1 virus counter on Gravedigger. It costs you a click and the virus counter, and you're able to trash the top card of R&D. So when you have Grimoire in play and you play Gravedigger out, first of all, Gravedigger is going to come in, and because of Noise's ability, it's going to mill 1 card. Then when you have Grimoire out, it comes in with a virus token, so right away you can mill a 2nd card. And then if you couple that with Imp and you're trashing your opponent's assets, so if it's an asset heavy deck, then Gravedigger is only going to get more counters, and you can use those counters again coupled with something like Amped Up. If you have more than 1 Gravedigger out and have the clicks to do so, you can start milling tons and tons of cards off of your opponent's deck. So there's 3 of those. And then lastly, another economy card is Sahasrara. I just call it Rara because it's so hard to say that damn name. 2 recurring credits. Use these credits to install programs. You cannot use Sahasrara to install a program that trashes Sahasrara. It costs $2 to come in, so the turn that you play it, you can pretty much get that $2 back immediately by playing a 2-cost virus like Imp, or playing 2 caches, for example, whatever have you. The great thing about this card is that because it only costs 2, because it only costs 2 credits, you are able to play the dead copies of it that you draw off your deck, just to have something to use Pawn Shop on later. So you're going to gain $3 off of that, because the 2nd Sahasrara is going to come out for free if you already have 1 Sahasrara out. So that rounds the deck out at 47 cards. Excuse me. And in terms of what you're looking for on a first hand, is you're trying to obviously get the Wild Side and the Pawn Shop very early, and possibly a cache. You don't really need to worry about seeing the adjusted chronotype early game, because you're going to obviously draw into it when you have your Wild Side. So you kind of want to make sure that you have an early virus to play, possibly an Imp in case the corp leaves any server open, so you can make that early game run and start trashing cards that may or may not be important to what the corp is trying to do. The second thing of importance is to try to get your Gravedigger combos going to mill even more cards. You'll find that you're able to mill out corpse very easily with this deck, more so than earlier renditions of the Noise deck.